Thanks for tuning in to our Best Philadelphia 2024 Launch Conference. You're about to watch panel number 1, Action Plan, a look into Philadelphia's meds and ed sector. Enjoy.
Hi, thanks. So the Wistar Institute is our nation's first nonprofit biomedical research organization with a history and mission of developing outstanding science and scientists through a highly enabled culture of biomedical collaboration and innovation. We work to solve some of the world's most challenging and important problems in the fields of cancer, immunology, and infectious diseases to produce groundbreaking advances in world health. I am pleased to moderate this panel today, Action Plan, the initiatives underway in Philly's eds and meds sector to create positive outcomes for students and patients. Although Wistar is not a healthcare provider, vaccines and therapies from Wistar have been credited with saving millions of lives around the world. And although Wistar is not a .edu, we educate and train hundreds of students and postdoctoral fellows each year using innovative curriculum and authentic Wistar research to meet the needs of our growing life science industry. As a .org, we partner with several local, national, and international colleges and universities, as well as many biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies. I'd like to highlight our signature education and training program, the Biomedical Technician Training Program, or BTT, which started as a collaboration with Community College of Philadelphia 25 years ago. In 2017, we extended the program into our Fox Biomedical Research Technician, or BRT, apprenticeship, the first apprenticeship in biomedical research in the country, which allowed the BTT program to become a state-registered pre-apprenticeship. With our first National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education grant and support from the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry, PA SMART program, as well as GSK and other foundations, we accelerated the BTT program and expanded to serve additional students from Montgomery County Community College, Bucks County Community College, and Delaware County Community College in southeastern Pennsylvania, and Camden County College in New Jersey. I am proud to announce we recently received a second National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education grant that supports continued expansion of our BTT pre-apprenticeship program in the tri-state region of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware through 2027. I'm also proud to have extended biomedical technician training to and underemployed adults with West Philadelphia Skills Initiative and committed employer partners, Iovance Biotherapeutics, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and Vinta Bio. Wistar's education and training programs serve high school, undergraduate, and graduate students, as well as postdoctoral fellows, opening the doors to biomedical research to develop a skilled and diverse workforce for our growing life science industry. In addition to Wistar's bridging of meds and eds, the other reason I was excited to moderate this panel, Action Plan, is that Wistar is a very nimble organization that has been able to take action in these areas, much like the organizations of our panelists this afternoon. Will you please welcome Dr. Chris Domes, president of Neumann University, Dr. Tom Beeman, a board of trustee member from Salus University, and Dr. Abiona Berkeley, interim senior associate dean of diversity, equity, inclusion at Temple University, Lewis Katz School of Medicine. Thank you all for being here, especially for being inside on such a beautiful spring afternoon. All right, so my first question is for everyone, and that's in the context of higher education and medical facilities, the ever-changing needs of stakeholders require careful planning and creative solutions. From your perspectives, are those needs being adequately met? And what are some strategies your organization has put in place that could make a difference? Any volunteers to go first?
I'll take it.
Thanks,
I think if you think anything is ever adequately being met, you probably need to step down from your job. Every moment, every year should be different from the one before. You should always be putting new things out there. In terms of what's happening in the field right now, I think for Temple University, we have started, for instance, taking community advisors that help us interview the applicants coming into medical school. We sit in a certain community. We want to make sure that we're attracting the right applicants. And it sends a message as well to incoming students that the community matters and that we're dedicated to serving not just the science of medicine, but the humanity of medicine. So that's one of the things we're doing in terms of the health system and the advocacy they're doing. They're also reaching out to the community. That's really important to them. So probably about a year or so ago, we started a community advisory board, and that board has actually held us to task. They've said, what have you done for us lately? And recently, probably it was March 6th, we went into the middle school. We took residents, we took transport workers, we took nutrition, and they showed the students sort of the jobs that are possible. We took researchers as well. So I think community is one of the things that we have to tap into.
Yeah, I would say we've had an advisory board at Neumann University for health sciences and also for areas of nursing and the medical area as well. So those advisory boards become very important because they're a key indicator. They're the folks on the front lines who are dealing with patients, dealing with research every day, and then helping us to both inform instruction, helping us to connect to good community partners, helping our students to understand what's happening in the field, what's advancing. And I think one of the things that I see happening, particularly here in the Philadelphia market, is the partnership between the educational institutions and the healthcare providers. That's really critical. And I would say that's a tremendous asset for Philadelphia. That isn't happening in other cities across the country in the way it's happening here. And I think that's a really important piece. And I think you can talk about equipment, you can talk about facilities and investment in all those areas, which is important. But frankly, the relationships between organizations are critical to the health of our communities and to making sure that we can continue to expand and develop healthcare in this area.
I think we have to look at ourselves as not just being in community, but of the community. So we have to be full participants in the community. So I like to describe our kinds of institutions as indispensable community assets. And we need to be working to that every day and say, it's almost like a political campaign. Vote for me. Would you vote for me today if you knew what I was doing? So I have to be doing things that attract you to the organization that we're part of. So things like buying food locally, making sure that you participate fully in the community, I think are really very, very important. Philadelphia has a long history of this, going back in creating community organizations like the improvement districts that exist. They've always been a partnership between universities and health systems, because generally we tend to be the largest organizations in a community that can't move. You know, other organizations might be bigger, but it's unlikely they're gonna stay if it doesn't work for them. But it's very unlikely that a university or a big health system can move. There's no place to go but here. So we have to improve our environment. So whether or not it's creating a program like a home in the city where we encourage our faculty or our staff to move downtown around the facility to make sure that we improve the housing in the district, to other things, I think it's all an imperative that we have to do. And if you have to engage, like I had to in Lancaster, and make payments in lieu of taxes, because without you, the city can't make it, you have to do it. Salus has been very, very involved in a number of community events, and just like Temple, really outreaching to the poor and underserved population to make sure they get the services that they need in the specialties that we can provide.
Thanks. Chris, you want to?
I would just say the other thing I think that universities and colleges bring to the table is a cross-disciplinary approach. We know that education is a big component of healthy communities. We know that business and training around business and nonprofit management is another area of making sure that we can advance important initiatives in the community. So universities can make these connections. We just did an event a few weeks ago at Neumann on neurodiversity and also first responders. So we had over 50 state police officers there talking about autism, talking of people with neurodiversity challenges, and that the way that a first responder should think about how they are looking at a person who has learning issues or may respond in a different way. And it's a great opportunity to bring together educators, healthcare advocates, and parents, and individuals that are in that situation so that they feel like they're supported by the community. I think those are another place where universities and colleges, along with healthcare providers and educators, can really help.
Thanks. So speaking of institutions that can't move, as an anchor in the greater Philadelphia economy, meds and eds account for nearly 10% of the region's income and 500,000 employees. How important are these industry pillars to the region's long-term growth? And what are some of the current and future challenges we need to overcome?
Well, I'm not really sure we can't move. And anything, again, I'm just one of those people. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to try to find a way to do it. And I can't claim that I did this, but we do move. We absolutely do move. So for example, at Temple, we have these mobile clinics. We've been doing them for vaccinations around COVID. We actually do move. Our health systems do move. So we're always innovative. We're always looking for different ways to reach out. I think I forgot your question, so.
Challenges in the long term to make sure we keep our meds and eds as a.
AI is an issue. We, for instance, have been starting to work on the dismantling of race-based clinical algorithms within medicine. So I think for many physicians, certainly the EGFR, the way you calculate kidney function, there were two categories. There was Black and other. So what do you do with somebody who's Asian? Where do you put them? What do you do with that? The National Society of Nephrologists ended up removing that a few years back. But we're looking at other spaces where some of those formulas that are just embedded within our institutions could be dismantled. But when you have a system that, like AI, that's already set up and you have already embedded it with information that now you think is false, how do you go back and correct that? How do you stop it from propagating forward for new learners? Another thing we're finding out is that everybody does something different. So, and I do not mean between institutions, which of course happens, but even within an institution, I have learned that this formula is the right thing and I apply it to patient X, but my colleague next to me is going to use a very different calculation. So patients are getting different treatments depending upon who they see. So I think we have to deal with that, but certainly AI, once it's embedded with stuff, it's going to be very hard to remove problems within the management of patient care.
I would just say an area just to shift a little bit is really talent development, making sure that the pipeline of individuals in high school and even earlier than that are interested in the health sciences and the health professions. That's really important. COVID did suppress interest in some areas of healthcare. I think individuals are seeing the challenges of being on the front lines with patient care during a very difficult time. So that has turned some individuals away from the profession and thinking about it. So I think as a community, we have to think about who are the individuals that are coming up, the next generation of healthcare providers. How do we get high schools, middle school students engaged in the great science of providing health and providing care for people, but also research in new drugs and new ways of treatment, and thinking about that as a way of sort of developing their interest and their passions in life. We know that it's a wonderful career and a wonderful professional track for individuals. However, they also have to see the value in it. And I think there's some students that look at it right now and say, do I want to do that? And that's a little bit of a concern. So I think we have to keep our eye on that as institutions and organizations.
I think we have to realize our responsibility for assuring that the right kind of students are coming up in our communities, and we can't ignore the fact that in grade school and high school, there may be problems out there, and we just can't ignore those and let them fester. We have to get involved. If there's food deserts in our community, we have to look at the food desert and we have to help fix it. There's gun violence, we have to be part of the solution. We have to realize, and what I meant about not moving is that if you move Temple out of the Northeast Philadelphia, those communities could collapse. It doesn't mean we don't outreach, but it also means that we're different than investor-owned healthcare, for example, which can move and does move. A lot of investor-owned hospitals, they buy them and then they leave because they treat it like a real estate deal. That's what not-for-profits are not like that. We're critical to the community's health, and we're responsible for helping to maintain that, and we can't ignore that. And we can't ignore the profound responsibility that we have for developing the next generation of providers and educators. And that's a big responsibility that we have. And that's something that I think that's happening very well in the Philadelphia marketplace. In addition to supporting the neighborhoods, we're supporting the kinds of students that we need to be the next generation that we're all going to depend on.
So speaking of supporting those students, this question is specifically for Chris. Newman's online bachelor's degree was recently ranked among the top 10 in the country for student engagement. How can the university's engagement with students online serve as a model in higher education and for other industries?
I would say that the way that we at Neumann have focused on online education is to think about what I would call wraparound services. We know that students who are seeking online experiences also want that same personal attention that a student would have in a classroom. So as an institution, I think the ways that we've tried to invest in online education is to make sure that 24/7 or many hours of the day, they have access to the individuals that a student would have if they were on the campus. That's hard to do, and it's hard to get there, but I believe that's really the way that institutions are going to be successful in online education. The unfortunate part of both online education as well as any kind of distant education is that the success rate, the graduation rates of those students are much lower than the in-person experience. So one of the things we have to do in education is continue to figure out how do we connect students, make them feel part of a community, and make them feel engaged. If they're in our programs, from online nursing to helping individuals who are first responders develop their leadership skills, we're working with people on the front lines. Those individuals have to deal with patients, they have to deal with the community, they're in front of the citizens every day or in front of patients every day. That online experience has to be translatable. It has to we have to make sure that they can take the skills, the experiences that they're learning in an online learning format and be able to apply them directly to their work. And we feel that we're on the path of doing that. Neumann is not known as an online provider. We have small programs. We're growing them, we're developing them. We want to make sure that as we think about them, that they're matching up with our mission and particularly these goals that I just laid out.
Thanks. This one's specifically for Abiona. Challenges in the healthcare industry cannot be understated as healthcare providers continually assess their current financial health. How will this impact both the industry and Philadelphia in the years to come?
It's an easy question.
So, I mean, I think certainly for Temple, within the past 2 to 5 years, we have been expanding our different services in many different areas, and up and coming is our Women's Center, which will sit in what is essentially a desert in the Juniata campus for laboring women who don't have a place between Temple and Einstein. So really looking at honing into some of these gaps that we have within to make sure that we have we have conquered some of that space. That's one of the big things, making sure that in terms of research, we have the top brain power that we have. I think leveraging some of the educational benefits that we need to in terms of reaching out to middle schools, as Tom was saying, we're doing some of that, working on really stratifying, on bringing people up through different pathways. So recently, Temple has been working on the nursing pathway. To be quite honest, throughout all of healthcare, there is a deficit. We don't have enough workers. We don't have any physicians. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough PAs. So working on some of those pipelines, we now have a training program that brings people in from the high school freshman level all the way up through nursing. And the hope is that they will stay on. They actually have a guaranteed contract to work at Temple if they stay on in that program. But looking at similar things that we can do to really leverage some of those opportunities is really key.
Thanks. And for Tom, once described as an overlooked fixed asset in cities, meds and eds are a primary driver of Philadelphia and the surrounding areas economy. Given your extensive experience in your career in healthcare as well as the higher ed space, what do you see as the next chapter of collaboration across institutions?
Okay, well, I never looked at them as sort of overlooked. I mean, healthcare is really 20% of the economy. It may not be in Philadelphia, but overall it's 20% of the economy. So it's very, very important to all of us in this room. And imagine a world without the kind of healthcare facilities and without the kind of education that we have. And it's not a world to imagine. However, I think we have been collaborating very well on technology and those kinds of things. But I think the next area for me is AI, and not just what's going to happen in healthcare or higher ed, but the ethics around it. I think given to our own devices, AI can develop in a lot of different ways. And if it's not tempered by the intellectual competencies that are in healthcare and higher education to help us put boundaries around the way we employ it, to not marginalize certain groups of people, and believe that transfer payments are more important than the ethics of having a job and real work is important. And I think meds and eds can be really an important piece of that dialogue and should be included.
Okay, last quick word for everybody. Tying everything together and looking toward the next 5 years in Philadelphia, what examples of progress would you like to see in the communities you serve? And how can your institutions and organizations help lead them there?
I would say that continued and advanced collaboration between institutions of higher education and healthcare providers. I would say both the industry of higher education and the industry of healthcare is changing. The economics are changing. The challenges around our industries are changing. And I think that we have to lean into collaboration and partnership and relationship more than we even are at this point. That I think that's the future and the direction that will help to both strengthen both the medical and delivery systems and hospitals in the region, but also will help to strengthen higher education. And I think those two, the collaboration will help make that happen in a more profound way in the future.
I think there are things that need to be blown up and there are things that need to be cemented. Education needs to be dismantled and reimagined. What was a good physician before was the person who could memorize the book. There is no longer a need to memorize the book. So we need to forget about that person and we need to look for the innovators. And I think you're kind of saying that when you speak about going to the middle schools and looking, but we're not looking for the same person to win in medicine that we had been before. And that's education and that's your physician. The person has to be able to think out of the box. You do not want the person who can regurgitate. That provider is dead. So we need to really be blowing stuff up. We need to be thinking of learning from our trainees and flipping the educational dynamic. We need to incorporate, and I think we all have agreed, community matters. So we need to remember where we sit, we need to reach out, and we really need to bring the community in. There was someone who said, the community isn't ignorant, they're smart, and that's why they're avoiding you. And that person is right.
Well, that's a lot of hard stuff to beat, but just a couple of comments. One is we're going to see a lot of consolidation and integration in the future, but both with higher ed and healthcare. We're going to have to step back as providers and educators and say, do our models work? This, with a colleague, published a book on international comparative analysis of higher education. Other countries have great models that we need to look at in higher ed. And they also have some great models in other countries in medical education. One example is Argentina, where any person that wants to go to medical school gets accepted, and then they get winnowed out based on their competencies in the medical school. What happens in the United States is people don't even apply because it's such a high bar to really get there. And what we do is we lose a lot of opportunities to get really qualified, wonderful people that would be great physicians who realized that they didn't really need organic chemistry, that was just one of the things that they had to take to get through the barrier. And that's just not right. So I think we're gonna have to step back, admire the problem, and then look for solutions that work for more people than we have now.
Thank you all for your time today.
Thanks.